guess we can continue what we were talking about.
Yeah, whatever we're talking about.
Okay, transitioning.
Start the story, so we always talk about drinking.
Right. So, yeah, when you brought up the drinks, I was talking about how my little short stint with alcoholism, unofficial diagnosed alcoholism, but my experience with alcoholism, I guess, like being in the military, especially in the Navy, is a lot of glamorizing the drinking culture,
Right.
especially in the 90s when I came in. It was just very easy to just get drinks wherever you went. On base, we had like the enlisted club, E club, there's O clubs. So there was basically nightclubs on base. So
Isn't there always an emphasis during Liberty on party, party, party?
pretty much, yeah, you're blowing off steam, so you're just kind of going to get out there and party. Um, Unfortunately, I never totally had that experience of being, like I said, being on the ship and being deployed and the Liberty calls. I've only had one, and that was for Fleet Week when we went to San Francisco. And that was brief because it was only a few days, but I've never had a chance to experience it like other sailors have, where they're on the ship for 6 or 7 months. They go to different ports and really get their beak sweat, if you will. But for my stint, though, it didn't derive specifically from my culture of being in the military, but I did grow a fondness for drinking wine when I was living in Spain, though. I wasn't really a wine aficionado until I lived in Spain because, Spain is already. Huh?
Madeira.
Madeira or the Rioja.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was in southern Spain, so that was nice.
Sangria, is that Spanish or Mexican?
Sangria, yeah.
Spanish?
It's just a mix of the wines with the
Wine and fruit juices.
wine or fruit juice or wine and seltzer.
So it makes it dangerous, folks, because you don't taste it going down.
You don't.
With tiki drinks.
Right. But
Very true.
I took the long way around, but I got there eventually.
That's okay. We got to put something up anyway.
Sorry, I know. I just, side quests.
Well, hey, without further ado, let's take a trip back in time with Hospitalman's mate, first class, Brenda Quintero, United States Navy retired, unfiltered, unplugged, uncensored, and right now.
Yeah, but to be honest, I was born in East LA, but I really didn't grow up there. For my formidable years, I grew up in Pomona, California, for my high school years. Well, late middle school, high school years, and that's where I enlisted into the Navy, is in Pomona, in 1994. Like many service members that go into the military, less than ideal upbringing, home life. My parents had divorced. My dad had established a new family, had custody of my brothers, my younger brothers, and I was kind of left to my own devices with my mother at that point. And my mother is not really, well, at the time was not really a fully capable individual. She was really struggling with a divorce, couldn't find a job, was really most dependent on me. And to be honest, I didn't aspire to go into the military. I really wanted to go to school. I was in band in high school, and I really had a dream of wanting to go to USC, be in the band, and do something like that. But that wasn't in the cards for me because after I graduated, about 1 year in, trying to go to community college at Mount San Antonio College in Pomona, I had a breakdown. I was 18-ish, 19 years old, and I just remember having a complete breakdown. I was crying all the time. I felt stuck. I really didn't have a place. I didn't have money. I was just working retail jobs, or at one point, I think I had a job at Taco Bell and other Payless shoe stores, I think was the job I was working at when I enlisted. And pretty much just I was taking the bus everywhere, walking everywhere, counting my change, and I didn't have a lot to there was nowhere for me to go other than to be a statistic. And a statistic in Pomona at the time was teenage parent or get involved with a less than desirable male at the time, which predominantly in my neighborhood was Crips. If anybody knows what Crips are, you have Crips, you have Bloods. The rival high school was Bloods, and I mean, we just had a lot of different things. It was a big melting pot, but it wasn't just about that. I felt safe in my neighborhood. I never felt like I was threatened or it was a bad situation. It just was a situation that I was in. And the only way out that I could see was to join the military. My father also was in the military. He was in the Army, and he also told me, you know, whatever you do, don't join the Army because it's less than ideal environment for many people. Nothing against the Army. There's a lot of people who join the Army. He just wasn't for him. So as typical, especially for the Los Angeles area and Southern California, Army and the Marines have a big presence in the Hispanic or Latino community. So you'll have a lot of uncles or your dad, everybody served in the Army. Same case for me. It was my dad and two or three of my uncles that were in the Army. They only did first terms, but that's a whole different story. But so I went to the Navy recruiting office and said I want to join the Navy, and they started the process and they said, when do you want to go? And I gave them a date, and January 24th, 1994 is when I was sent off to boot camp. Now, where was boot camp? Orlando, Florida. Now, I had never been to Florida before. I'm from Southern California, so they just kind of say, this is where you're going to go. And I say, okay. And I had the School of Navy Corpsmen. So I qualified for Navy Corpsmen, and that's what was waiting for me in my C school, or A school, actually, A school, which is Corps School after boot camp. So I went to boot camp. It was a great experience. We were integrated companies, so it was a mix of males and females. I was selected during the first couple of days of boot camp to be what they call pin staff. So it's kind of like a leadership role within the company, is what we call it, with the group that you're with. And mine was LPO. And LPO was laundry petty officer, so it's not super fancy. It just means they put us in charge of, you know, processing the laundry for our company. So it wasn't anything to write home about, but, you know, hey, it was something. And that was the first time that I had ever felt safe in my entire life. And what do I mean by that is there was a lot of people that were there, you know, they were crying, they were upset, they missed their boyfriends or they missed their families, they couldn't wait to get home. And, you know, mind you, boot camp is not that long. I think maybe 6 to 8 weeks. I could be wrong. It's been a long time, I forgot. But, and I couldn't understand that. I guess because I had left a less than ideal environment to one where I actually felt safe. For the first time in my life, I actually felt taken care of. I didn't have to worry about where my next meal was going to come from. I didn't have to worry about where I was going to sleep. I didn't have to worry about my laundry, my self-care, which I think a lot of people don't think about, those little things, especially for women who are in between homes or maybe homeless. The self-care that we require as young women, or just women in general, you have to get creative, and when you don't realize what you have until you don't have it anymore. At one point when I was living, to back up a little bit, at one point when I was staying with my mom, we didn't have running water. I think I was just caught in the middle of the chokehold between my parents, and my dad was just trying to make the situation as inhospitable for my mom as possible, but I was caught in that. And I was just more of a a nuisance, if you will, particularly for his new wife. She was not very welcoming of the blended family dynamic. And from how it appeared, my dad seemed to be on board with that as well. So I think he just took my brothers out of legal obligation, honestly. And because I was 18, I was no longer, nobody was legally required to have to help me. So I had to help myself. But with that said, so boot camp became more of a safe haven. So I thrived in boot camp, and I think I somewhat, it was good. And the only thing I can think about was, I need to get through this, because this is all, I don't have, my eggs are all into this basket. I don't have any other options available to me. If this does not work out, I do not know what I am going to do. I don't have a home. I don't have any money. I don't have any resources. I felt abandoned by my family. I really felt stuck. So I just remember when we were doing our fitness test before you graduate, because you have to run 1.5 miles. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it is if you're not used to doing that. So you have to pass a fitness test within a certain time. And I just remember chanting to myself, just keep running, you gotta run, you gotta do this, you're running for this, you're running for your survival, you're just running. There's just no stopping. And I come to realize that that became my mantra, or my inner dialogue, for the duration of my career and my life, meaning that you just keep moving, you just keep running. Obstacles are going to come into your way, many obstacles, some less than ideal than the other, but you just have to keep running. You just got to keep moving. You can't let anything slow you down, because once you let all that get in, once you quit because you face adversity, that's it. You're not going to achieve anything else. And that's the whole exercise, isn't it, of living, I guess, if you will, is how you overcome your challenges, not giving in to them. But I digress. So moving in, so I graduated from boot camp successfully, thank goodness, and went on to core school, which was in Great Lakes, Illinois. So first time ever been to Illinois, and it was April. They just were on the back end of a blizzard of 94, and I had never seen snow other than going to the mountains in Southern California briefly, and I wasn't really a fan, but it was cold. I have never felt that kind of cold before in my life. If you've never been to Chicago, it's the bone-chilling kind of cold. It's like getting hit with a bag of needles. And the gear that they gave us, and my dress blues and whatnot, we weren't given winter gear like the people who went to boot camp in Great Lakes. We were just given our pea coat and the standard fare, a watch cap and some gloves, and none of that helped out when you're showing up in that situation. And I have never flown before other than going to boot camp. And I just remember graduating boot camp, and you go to the travel office, they hand you this packet, and they're like, okay, well, this is where you're supposed to be. So you have orders where you're supposed to be. They do provide you the ticket, but you have to make your own arrangements at the time, and everything was very confusing. I've never done that before in my life. I didn't know how to get to an airport, what to do at an airport, how to fly by myself. I didn't know how to do any of that. Because to get you to boot camp, they cart you around, so you're kind of in a group. So you don't have to think about anything. They take care of all their arrangements. And at this point, I had to take care of my own arrangements, and I felt overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to do. I was scared. But you don't let anybody know that you're scared. So instead of telling people, hey, I need help, I'm not really sure how to do this, you kind of like, okay, and you kind of just wing it. And that was pretty much the whole exercise for me. Flying out from Orlando into Great Lakes, all I knew was I had to be there at a certain time, but I didn't know, and the pay wasn't all that great. So I, as a young woman, didn't have any money, really. I had the minimum pay that I was making at Payless Shoe Store. Not a lot to do, a whole lot to do with. So when you graduate boot camp, you get your whole paycheck for the entire time you're at boot camp. So that's the most money I've ever had at once in my entire life.